Hey FlossTube, this is Brian. Welcome back. In this video, I am going to share with you the spreadsheet that I use to track my projects. I have shared with you this spreadsheet before, but I have made significant changes to it, and I thought I would share this would be version 2.0 of my spreadsheet, I guess. And it is available for you to use if you want to use it. I am going to show you the version in Google Sheets. There is also an Excel version that you can download. The link to both of them will be in the notes below. The Excel version is a little bit more elegant, and you can use either one. I'm sharing with you the Sheets version just because Google Sheets is free and available to everybody. You just have to have a Google account. The Excel version is not quite as free, so if you don't have Excel, it may not be as useful to you. At any rate, let's get started. Both spreadsheets, there are a few differences in the spreadsheets, but they both work basically the same. So this is the first sheet in my workbook, and this is basically has options that you can use to kind of change the way that change the behavior of some of the calculations. And as a general rule, any cell that is highlighted with this light gray color is a cell that you can modify to change some options, or that you can enter data in. A cell that does not have a light gray background is a cell that is automatically calculated by the spreadsheet and filled in by the spreadsheet. So you can tell where you can enter in data and where the spreadsheet just takes over. So if you want to make a copy of this sheet, all you need to do is come up here and click on File, click on Make a Copy, and you can copy this into your own area. Once you have your own copy, you can make any modifications, you can start entering your data, you can do whatever you want. Okay, as I said, this is the sheet that is used to configure the behavior of certain parts of the spreadsheet. We will come back to here because it'll be easier to explain things as I go through the sheets. But up here at the beginning, you can see you enter in the day of the first date that you want to start tracking. I started tracking on January 1st, 2016. So that is the first day in my spreadsheet. I haven't tested it, but I believe that you can start at any date. You do not need to wait for the beginning of the year to start tracking. And I am showing you my data in my spreadsheet. The spreadsheet that you will see will not have this information. It will not have my information. It will mostly have everything set up for you to start entering in data. So this next sheet, projects, is a database of all of the charts that I have that I want to stitch. And basically this is just so that I can pull up information about any chart when I want to. The status, this is a key that I use to kind of tell me whether I'm working on a project or whether I have the fabric or the floss for the project. This key is a code that I use. You can use any code in here because nothing else uses that code in the spreadsheet. So I'm not going to explain my codes. You can come up with your own codes. Probably the most important thing is that you can click on this little upside down triangle, and then you can filter out based on the status code that is in here. In fact, you can filter out anything on any column if you just click on that upside down triangle. Of course, there's the design name, whether it's part of a series. the name of the designer, where the chart is found, the account of the suggested fabric, whether it's stitched over one or stitched over two, and the suggested fabric, the number of stitches, the stitch width, and the stitch height. And then based on that data, the spreadsheet calculates the number of stitches, the number of blocks, which is basically the number of stitches divided by 100. And then you can also enter in, if you want to, you can enter in the number of empty blocks in the design. That's a 10 by 10 block that doesn't have any stitches in it. Or if you want to start tracking a design that you've already started stitching, you can enter in the number of blocks that already are completed, so that the spreadsheet doesn't expect you to stitch those stitches again. What's really cool about this is the spreadsheet, based on the fabric count and whether you're stitching over one or over two, and with the stitch width and the stitch height, it will calculate the size of the design on the fabric. And you can play around with the count, whether you're stitching over one or over two, to get a feel for the final size of your design. It also tells you the standard size of fabric that you would need for that design, so that you don't have to decide. You can just know what size of fabric you need. And then that design size assumes a design margin of 3 inches on all sides. You can change that by coming over here and clicking on design margin and change the number in here, and that will alter the design size, the calculated design size. Also over here right now, this spreadsheet is calculating a 365 rolling average. You can change the number of days in the rolling average, and then it is using this 365-day rolling average, which is in this cell. It uses that as an estimate to tell you how many days, if you were to start stitching, how many days it will take you to stitch that design. This is just a prediction. And then that's the number of weeks. And then if you were to start stitching today and stitched only on that design, this will predict when the design will be completed. Okay. This is a database of the number of finishes that I have done, of every finish that I have ever done. These will go down here towards the bottom because the first few designs don't fit the pattern, because I was not keeping track of my stitching when I stitched them. But once again, you have the design name, the designer, the chart, stitch width, stitch height, number of stitches. This is once again the empty blocks and the completed stitches, the fabric count, and the name of the fabric that I decided to use. And then this is the type of floss that I've used. That's just for record keeping. This is the date that I started it. That is automatically calculated from the log. The date that I finished. And then this is the actual number of, okay, this is the difference between these two dates. So that tells you how long I worked on it. And then this number is the actual number of days that I stitched on it in that amount of time. And then this number over here is the number of days that I spent back stitching. And then I have also started keeping track of the amount of time that I've stitched on each, worked on each piece, and that is here as well. So that's my finished database. For both of these, you will only see the first couple of lines. All you need to do if you want to enter in a new finish is copy the line, and then enter in the information that's in the gray boxes, and everything else will be automatically calculated. And that is the same for the projects. I have some projects that I haven't talked about that I started and stopped stitching for one reason or another, and this is only used because of the way I some of the statistics that I calculate. So in here I just enter the name, and the spreadsheet will calculate the date I started it and the last date I worked on it before I decided not to work on it again. This is a list of my current WIPs, the current projects that I am working on. Once again, you enter in the name of the project, information about it, and then it will. I have also started keeping track of the pages of each design. So this is the number of pages in the design, and if any pages have been completed before I started tracking the number of pages that have been completed. The fabric that I am stitching on, and then the spreadsheet tells me when I started. It predicts when I will finish. Calculates the number of days that I have been working on it so far, the number of days that I have been back stitching, the amount of time the number of hours that I have been stitching, the percentage complete that it is currently at, the last day I worked on it, and how many days it has been since I last worked on it. So this is just information that you can use. This sheet, when you get it, it will be blank. This is what I am using to keep track of my rotation. Basically, I have the date of the date that I change, and then the project that I worked on for the week. A blue background indicates a new start, and this will be blank. You can do whatever you want with this sheet. Okay, this is stitching log. This is the actual data that I enter in. Every day I enter in what I stitched. So once again, the first two in your spreadsheet, the first two lines will be available, and all you have to do is copy a line and then enter in the data in these gray spots to indicate what you did that day. The spreadsheet will handle if you work on more than one project during a day, all you have to do is have 2 entries for that day. You enter in the number of stitches that you stitched, the amount of time that you spent stitching. I'll go down to the bottom of where I am right now. So the number of stitches that I stitched, the amount of time that I spent stitching, and the project I worked on, and then the number of the page that I finished if I finished a page. All of this are values that are being calculated to indicate values that I calculate that are used in other places in the spreadsheet. Okay. I've created grids of all of my designs, and I have highlighted with red the pages that have been completed. So this kind of gives me a visual of how much of the design I've actually stitched. When you get this will be blank. You can put in your own page grids for the designs if you want. Okay, so that is basically where you do all of your data entry. And then there's a whole bunch of summary data that's calculated. So here, this is basically a log for a specific project. The way the spreadsheet is set up right now, default, this is the data for the last project from the current project I'm working on. So, and for each day, it has the number of stitches, and it calculates the number of stitches I put in, how many stitches I have total stitches. This is a running total of the number of stitches that I've made. This is a running total of the stitches that are remaining. You can go through and look at all of this. Probably what's really interesting here is this is pace calculation for the number of days. For rolling averages, like this is a 7-day rolling average, a 30-day rolling average, a 180-day rolling average, a 365-day rolling average. And this is a kind of an exponentially smooth trend number and average. So for those values, it calculates the pace, then the number of days that are remaining to stitch based on this pace, and then a prediction of when this will be a prediction of when I will finish based on the pace that I am stitching in these rolling averages. The percent complete I am at, and then the number of days I've been stitching without a break, and then the number of days that I haven't worked on this project without a break. So this is calculated for every day since the start date. So you can change some of the behavior of this page. If you go back to settings and info, so right now my project summary is last. That indicates to use the project I am currently working on. And there's a comment that explains this. If you want to pull up the summary for a specific project, all you have to do is type the name of the project in here. Let's see here. When you have last in here, this is basically the chart that the project that the summary is for, and whether or not the status, whether or not this is a WIP, or whether it's completed, or whether I have stopped working on it. Also, you saw the rolling averages. You have 4 different rolling averages that you can calculate, and you can change the number of days for each of these rolling averages. So right now I have a week, a month, 6 months, and a year. You can change those to be anything you want. Okay, we'll click over here. This is a weekly summary of the same project. So basically this is the number of stitches that I put in between the 11th and 15th of the week, between those days. So this kind of gives you a feel for how much I have done in a given week. And there is a 52-week rolling average. Once again, you can change the behavior of this chart if you come over here and click on settings and info. You can enter in the number of weeks that you want to calculate a rolling average for, and then also weekly summary type. If this explains this. So if this value is a 1, then that means that the weeks begin on Sunday for each calculation. And you can enter in one of these numbers to indicate when you want to start your week. If you just type week, then it will calculate weeks based on 7 days after the start date of your project. Okay? There is also a summary for monthly. So these values are calculated for every month. And you can see all of this information is calculated for every month. We have a 12-month rolling average and basically prediction. I mostly look at this to see how I'm doing month to month with the number of stitches that I put in each project. You can come back here and change the behavior of this chart a little bit too. If you come here and change monthly summary type. I have this set to the 1st, which means that the month begins on the 1st. If you type in 30 here, then the month will be calculated on the same day of the month as you started the project. So like if you started on the 15th of the month, every 15th a new month will start to be calculated. You can change the number of months for the rolling average in this cell. Okay, so that is all. So you can pull up all of your projects and see how you did over time. This sheet is basically a monthly trend. This calculates the number of days that you've stitched each project, the number of stitches that you've put in the month. This is the total age of all of your projects, the average age, the total number of days that you've been working on your projects, the average days, the total number of whips that I have over time, the number of whips that I have actually stitched on during that month, the number of whips that I have not stitched on, the number of starts that I've had, when I've had finishes, if I have stopped working on a project, and the number of pages that I've finished. The behavior of this chart can also be changed a little bit if you come back into settings and info. Right now I have this set to be rolling, which means, and then the number of months. Right now I am calculating trend data for the last 12 months. If you just want to have the whole history, and your chart will have, when you first download it, it will start with history because rolling won't make much sense if you don't have a lot of data. If you just type history, then you will have all of the history for all of your months. So I'll change this right now so that you can see that. Also, I don't want that chart to change at the beginning of the month because I need to hold it over. So down here, I am saying that I want to roll over to the next month on the 15th, on the 15th of the month, and you can change that number to tell it when you want to roll over to the next month. So if we come back here to the monthly trend data, now you can see I have data for each starting from January 2016. And what's kind of cool is I have these spark lines over here. So if you were to graph out this data, it will give you a feel for what that would look like. In this spreadsheet on sheets, I don't have graphs just because I cannot make dynamic graphs that automatically resize. The Excel will have charts that automatically resize based on the data. That's one of the differences between Excel and Sheets. However, with Excel, the spark lines over here don't automatically resize. If you change the number of months that you're graphing, you would have to change the range that is being used for the spark line. So this is basically a trend for all of these statistics. And then I have a bunch of sheets that are used to kind of calculate some of the data in here. I won't go through all of these in a lot of detail, but this is the number of days that I've worked on each project over time. The age of each project, so you can see as time goes on, each project gets older, and it kind of gives you a feel for when you started projects and when they finished. This is the number of days I've stitched each project, so you can kind of get a feel for when I stitched on them. When each project was a whip, so you can see you've got bars for the months that I was working on that project. The number of stitches that I put in each month. This is a running total of the stitches that I put on each project. This is the pages that I've completed on each project over time. So all of those are used to calculate the data used in the monthly trend data. So this is a summary for May 2019. You can pull up any month in the database to see what you did. So if I wanted to look at January 1st, 2019, the data will change. And this tells me the projects that I worked on, the number of days I worked on each project, the number of stitches I put in, how much time I spent, and the number of pages that I finished. And then there's spark lines down here along the bottom that kind of give you a visualization of that data. So I'm going to change this back to 5/1/2019. And then I have the same kind of summary statistics for annual, calculated on an annual basis. The number of days that I've stitched on each year, the number of starts that I've had, the number of finishes, the number of projects that I have abandoned. These are just placeholders for when I started and finished projects, just so that I have that information. You won't see that. You'll see that yours will start when you start your when you enter in the start day in the first sheet. And then this is once again a record of the number of days that I've worked on each project on an annual basis. This is the number of stitches that I've worked on each project. And also I can pull up a summary for any year. So right now this is the current year. If I were to put in 1/1/2018, then this will tell me what I worked on in 2018. Okay. This is the number of, this is a running total of the number of stitches I've put in on each over a year's time. And this will fill in as I enter in more years. Okay, so that's all the sheets. Of course, as always, let me look at this and make sure that I covered everything that you can do to change. Yes, I did. So that's my spreadsheet. As I said, feel free to download and play with it. Start entering in your data. If you find any problems, any bugs, feel free to let me know. I think I've got everything, but you may see something that's strange, and I would love to hear from you if you find a bug. Also, if you have suggestions of things I can do to improve this spreadsheet, feel free to let me know about that as well. I would love to have any suggestions, any other statistics that you think would be cool to collect or anything like that. At any rate, I hope that you enjoyed following through with me on this, and let me know what you think. Once again, thanks for spending time with me, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.